All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What's going on, everybody? We're back talking some fights, coming off a huge weekend. My man Rio and I were at the fights. Was a great time for sure. Didn't have as great of a time as our man Hoop, though, did. Ship the MMA streets, flagship, all the tournaments. Ships golf. No one runs better than Hoop right there. But a lot of members had very good weekends as well. I think we were spot on a lot of stuff, Marley. You got Ilya right. Both definitely costing me some cheese, but was a fun card. No dogs coming through. Val Woodburn at 39 on the winner was pretty interesting. We do have, I'll throw it to Marley first. We do have the two winners from the YouTube comments last week. Closest significant strike, so I'll get to that in a sec. But Big Marley, Friday afternoon, at least for you, still in the morning over here, drinking a high noon. What's going on, man? What's on the agenda?
Yeah, man, just celebrating Hoop's quarter milli victory last weekend between UFC and golf. Yeah, I've just been working on this card. Was getting pumped up for the podcast. Figured I'd crack a nooner for this one because I think it's a tough card, man. I'm excited for it for DraftKings. I think there's lots of ways to go, but it's hard to narrow down like specific lineups that I like trying to hand build them so far. So I think it could be a solver card, but I'm not sure yet. I'm excited to talk it out with you. I think there's just a handful of fights that we could target heavily and hope to hit the right combinations, but not a lot of big time stands I'm looking to take this week.
Yep, I'm with you. So I'm typing it in the chat, the two winners. It was Trick Shots Gaming and Rob BB, capital B, 39. Both guessed on info at ship. Two things at once is pretty tough. Three things at once, actually. Both guessed 97 significant strikes, and 82 was the correct number. So I'm dropping it right here. And this is, again, courtesy of our man Coolin, who had the big $250,000 win in the best ball playoff streets right there. So congrats to you two. You guys guessed 97, which was the closest to 82. You guys get a free membership from Coolin over here at SHIPIT Nation. There's our man right there. Coolin in chat. What's going on, man? Hope everything going well with you. But again, Trick Shots Gaming and Rob BBB 39. All you have to do is take a picture of your YouTube, email info@shipitnation.com. You guys get a free month courtesy of our man Coolin. We got my man Siggy in chat. Devin's in here. Seagy's in here, Ben Jizzy, Lone Wolf, Jackie Peppers, Devin Davis. What is going on, everybody? Michael Peterson in here as well. Man, it was a fun card last week about that. We appreciate those words, Matt. Hopefully everything going on with you. I'm with you, though, on this card, Marley. I'm really happy that we have the 2 5-round fights. Obviously, no title fights in this one, but 2 5-rounders makes it fun because if we didn't have 2 5-rounders, man, this card's, I already think it's tough. A lot of big favorites. 3 over -500 right now. Mid-tier solid. I think there's 4 clear fights on the slate that we want to target. However, one of those fights, we have everyone weighed in so far. Edgar Chairez and Daniel Lacerda. Chairez missed by 5 pounds. Lacerda missed by 1 pound. Hopefully that fight stays on. That is one of the best fights, in my opinion, to target. Any Daniel Lacerda fights are. So we'll get to that. We'll talk like it's on, and if it is canceled throughout, let us know. What's going on, John Kelly? Hope everything going well with you. Robert Pena's in the building. Rummy's in here as well. What is up, everybody? Appreciate everyone hanging out. We have a lot. What is it, like 13? How many weeks in a row was it? 11 weeks of MMA? Do you know the number? Yeah, so we still got plenty to talk about. Fights on the screen every Saturday. We lose Sunday and NFLs, but plenty of money to be made. And, hey, if you're fans of Bellator, there's a lot of fights going on this weekend. Busy over here. I'll probably just be watching the UFC for the most part. But if you want fights, plenty of fights to be watched. Any broad slate overview, any initial stuff you want to talk about? Again, 2 5-rounders, which makes it really interesting. 13 fights. Hopefully we keep that Lacerda fight. But any initial thoughts before we go bottom to top like always?
No, not really. I am glad that the Yair Ortega fight is 5 rounds. I think that's what really throws off this slate and makes it more difficult with just more fights that I'm really trying to squeeze into my lineup. we'll get to them all. I'm hoping you can maybe change my mind or sway me one way or another on a few of these fights. Maybe not a few, but a couple. But other than that, I feel fairly decent about this card.
Absolutely. And before we get into it, if you do want all the content at SHIPITNation.com, of course, MMA, shout out that man right to my, right to my left, Big Marley, best ownership in the business, according to Sheets, who has been tracking it ever since Shipping Nation has started. Ownership, the most important, I'd argue. I mean, you don't need to know anything about MMA. A lot of the sharpest people out there in DFS don't even know the sports or watch. MMA is most definitely an ownership, duplication, unique sport. And you need good ownership. Marley, shout out to you. Have absolutely been crushing that. We have that on the site, projections. We'll talk through it. It'll all be on the site after. Slate plan, tier rankings, fight rankings, everything you need to be successful in MMA, NBA. Shout out our man Himsey, won the $4.20 entry max, $7,500 in the NBA streets. Saw Assassins won the showdown content. We have showdown content for NBA. Golf with DGen. If you do want to join, use that promo code DGen15. Gets you 15% off as well. Golf absolutely on fire. Showdown content, of course, great projections and ownership over there as well. No better time. NHL. Next thing you know, MLB is going to be back too. Very excited for that as well. No better price, no lower price in the industry for great content. SHIPITNation.com. And if you do join monthly, 6-month, or annual, get in the Discord. If you just want to check out the content, the weekly package we do have for as low as $24.99 does not include the Discord, though. If you want to just check out what we got, though, make sure to check that out. Big boy NBA slate later on as well. All the MMA content will be up shortly after this show. Let's get into it, though. Appreciate that like button from everyone out there as well. Hope everybody having a good week, having a good Friday. Have some fun plans throughout the weekend. First fight of the night, big boy favorite to start it off. Muhammad Naimov taking on Eric Silva. 9,100 Naimov. 7,100 is Eric Silva. Looking at the odds in this one, Naimov minus 550. Eric Silva plus 400. This fight is minus 200 to finish. Naimov minus 150 inside the distance. Eric Silva plus 600. Looking at the ownership we have on this fight, we have Naimov at 36%. Eric Silva at 10%. I wouldn't even be surprised if Naimov got a little more than 36, maybe around 40. According to his price at 9,100, compared to the money line, compared to the inside of the distance prop, he definitely grades out one of the best in the top tier for sure. So definitely going to come with ownership. Silva will be pretty low owned. Throw it right to you in this one, Marley. How do you see it?
Yeah, man, I think this line is getting out of control, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not super sold on Naimov in general. Came into the UFC on short notice, dropped the first round to Jamie Malarkey, who's not a great UFC fighter, and ends up knocking him out in the second, I believe.
Still have nightmares.
And then I was very impressed in his last fight because he beat Nathaniel Wood. I'm very high on Nathaniel Wood, but he had to cheat his way to get there a little bit. And it was also, he's just a lot bigger than Nathaniel Wood. My complaint with Wood was that I think he's in a weight class heavier than he should be. And I don't think Naimov can just bully real 145 pounders. So on the regional scene, if we're just comparing regional scene tape on these two, Silva was more impressive. Man, he was just going in and running through guys in the first and second round in the last 5 fights before he got to the UFC. And Naimov comes in as a big underdog to Jamie Malarkey. So his stock has just completely risen in the UFC from those 2 wins. And then Eric Silva's just now coming off of a pretty bad loss, I guess, to TJ Brown. I mean, but if you gave me TJ Brown at these odds, I'm definitely taking it over to Naimov. So I just don't get it. For me, it's dog or pass at the current line. I also think that you're probably right. I probably do need to raise that ownership a little bit because this line just keeps going up and up. And now he's even minus 150 inside the distance. So he's going to get the ownership for sure. But I'm not so sure he's even the better fighter in the first round of this fight. My biggest issue with Silva, well, I guess there's 2, would be his age. He's getting up there in age now. And then his gas tank would be the other issue. And now we're fighting at elevation. So that just leads to me thinking that Naimov does take over down the stretch, probably wins the second and the third round if it goes to the scorecards, or he finishes in the second or third round. But at all his ownership, at his price, is that going to be enough? I just don't know if he's going to go out there and land a whole lot of takedowns, especially early in this fight. And if Silva does win, I think it's going to be in the first round or first half of the fight, and he breaks the slate at like $6,900. So my preferred play is going to be Eric Silva in this one, just because I don't think he'll get any ownership. I think he has slate breaking potential, and I think that this line is just getting out of control. But ultimately, I think Nemov should win it more often than not. And mostly the second and the third round is where I see all that happening. Once Eric Silva starts to slow down, Nemov probably picks it up. He is powerful. He can, land some takedowns, keep top control time. And the longer this fight goes, the more it should help Nemov. So he's the pick ultimately, but there's no way I'm laying anywhere near minus $600 on him.
Yeah, it is worth noting. I should have said it from the top. This card is in Mexico City at Elevation. A lot of these fighters have been training at Elevation or went to Mexico City early to get there. Some of the shoot to box guys, we have 3 on this card, did arrive this past week, which we will get to that. But it is worth noting, just like Colorado, Utah's a little elevation. The longer these fights go, you might see some of these guys gas a little earlier than usual. I don't have too much more to add. I mean, my initial the line's definitely too wide. An Eric Silva primary wrestler, if solid grappler, if he does win, you almost surely will be on the optimal. I was going back, I guess not necessarily back and forth. Item is a fade, but if you had to pick one of Daniel Lacerda or Eric Silva, which one would you play? Because I was going Lacerda just because of that fight and just how he fights. Like someone I think is going to be optimal in that fight, assuming it is there. But do you have a lean on that?
Man, I would say not really, because I like the same things about Lacerda. Like the same points are going to be made about him, to be honest with you. So if either of them win, I expect a high score. And if they both win, they're probably both on the optimal lineup. So I would say they're rated like really close to each other for me.
Yeah, that's fair. My plan right now is still to avoid a lot of these big dogs, like plus 400 and greater in 20 entry and below. Leave some salary, maybe just play one of the 5 rounders, jam more of the mid-tier, stuff like that. So I don't think I still get too much Eric Silva. You talked me into a little. If I build over 20 teams, I'll get some there again as the wrestler, the grappler. Naimov looks great on paper for sure. The money line, inside the distance prop, etc. Said in the slate plan, which will be up. If I had 20% love my script, I'm fine. If I had 60% love my script, I'll be fine. Like I'm not really worried about what I get Naimov. He's going to be, I think, 35 to 40%. If I'm around there, fine. But there's enough people in the upper tier that have – the upper tier is pretty strong this week. And a lot of them could put up, I think, 110 plus. So I'll use Naimov in lineups that I'm kind of more contrarian or maybe fading a 5-round fight. And I maybe go mix in some of the lower-owned 9K fighters and I'm already getting chalky is how I think I'm going to play Naimov here. 7,350 feet elevation. Eddie coming in, as always, with the stats. Good morning, Thomas. Good morning. Oh, that's not Matt. Matt was already talking. What's up, Matt, though? And Sheets. All right. Just stopping in for a few minutes. We'll catch a show on playback. My favorite play is ridiculously obvious. And if Title does not know it, I will give a free month to SHIPIT Nation to whoever. Ridiculously obvious. I'm going to go Chris Duncan, Sheets. That's what stood out to me first. I do not think Lacerda would be the crazy thing that you would say either, but because of the money line and everything, I'm going to say Chris Duncan, Sheets. So let me know if that is it in chat. And if I'm wrong, that means he said obviously low. So I think that is it. Yeah. We'll get to that fight, but that didn't make sense. It wasn't as obvious as I expected. We'll get to that fight. We'll talk about it soon, but both sides will get ownership. Torres definitely will get a lot of ownership, but unfortunately, people, you do not get a SHIPIT Nation membership for free on Sheets because I got it right. Should have been the other way, Sheets. Come on. What's going on, Tyler? We appreciate those words, man. So, yeah, that's Naimov Silva. Hey, Silva's going to be low-owned. Marley made cases for him. If he wins, almost surely in the optimal. Has to be dog or pass on the betting line, though. But my focus, especially mainly on the DFS streets. Keep it going. Next fight on the card. Felipe Dos Santos, Victor Altamirano. 9,200 Felipe, 7K for Altamirano. We got Felipe at minus 290, plus 245 on the way back for Altamirano. This fight is the most likely fight to go the distance on the card at plus 160, which, hey, that means we're expecting some violence, expecting a fun card. Pretty much all that finish equity on the Dos Santos side at plus 180, Altamirano plus 900. I'm interested in your take on this one, Marley, because right now I have this fight as a full fade. I definitely don't like Altamirano. I do not think the upside is really there. I don't think he's really a good fighter. But if I'm kind of circling back a little bit. If I'm going to fade Felipe Dos Santos, I just naturally on a card where dogs are pretty tough, maybe a 75-point win at 7K would be enough. I don't love the upside as much for Altamirano, but both guys could mix in takedowns here. Altamirano, poor takedown defense. Dos Santos, still a young kid. I mean, probably this line, a lot of it has to do is he came on short notice against Manel Kape, shoot-to-box guy, young kid, and looked solid. He's unanimous decision, probably lost 30-27, but he pushed the pace, landed 99 significant strikes, showed heart. He showed he was solid. But you look at the other tape that I was watching, looks like a lot of holes in his game. He's definitely hittable. And he's one of the shoot-to-box guys that coming over to Mexico City late, hasn't trained really that much at elevation. Altamirano's been there. So I guess I might circle back a little bit. I don't love this fight, relatively speaking. In terms of ownership, though, this fight will be one of the lowest owned on the card. Dos Santos, 21%. Altamirano, 11%. I have more interest in the dog in Altamirano now that I'm talking about it more. And especially if that Lacerda fight gets canceled, I definitely think I'll be playing some of my Lacerda ownership to Altamirano right here. But in a vacuum, 13 fights with 2 5-rounders. Not a fight I like too much. I like others in the 9K more than Dos Santos. I like some others in the lower 7K range. I guess 7.5 and below more than Altamirano. So curious to hear your take on this one, though.
Yeah, I think I'm closer to the full fade side. I don't mind full fading this fight because I do prefer other underdogs priced around Altamirano more than him. And I think there's, a handful of better looking favorites on paper. But for me, I think I have more interest in Dos Santos just to get a little bit different from the field. Starting your lineups different by getting him in there, but he's going to need a finish in order to pay off that $9,200 price. And I do think he is just more skilled everywhere. Anywhere this fight goes, I think he's more skilled, and I think he's more dangerous as well. But Altamirano is an awkward striker who can mix in takedowns, and he is a guy who can go for a hard 15 at a high pace. He'll slow down as the fight moves along, but he can fight at a high pace. And I think if he's going to win this fight, it's just going to be him outworking Dos Santos and just doing a little bit more than Dos Santos does. Dos Santos looks flashier, lands the better shots, but Altamirano lands an extra takedown, lands 10 extra punches on the feet or something like that. So I'm ultimately on, I'd rather just not have this fight in my lineups, but I'd rather go contrarian the other way with the favorite. And I think I am a little bit high, actually, at 21% Dos Santos. I might move that down a little bit and Naimov up.
Yeah, I would do like 4 or 5. I think so too. Like a 16-41, something like that is
I'll probably end up doing that before we even get out of this show. But for me, I would rather get contrarian with the favorite. I am going to pick him to get a finish at some point in this fight. I just think that the skill gap is going to be there. And it is also, like you said, it's kind of judging him off of a loss. But damn, man, that was a really impressive loss against a title contender. So I don't think Altamirano has that in him. Give me Dos Santos to get a finish. But if he wins the decision, I would expect him to score like 70 points, and that's just not going to cut it.
Not at all. So who do you think is more likely? Shout out to you, Sheets. We see that, man. He could have tanged, say, I wouldn't do that to you. Giving it to the people. Marley, think of something. Marley, if you're not a member, say something in chat. Marley will pick someone on this show in the YouTube chat watching live. If you're not a member, want to be one, say why you want one, courtesy of Sheets. Shout out to that. I would never do that to you, Sheets.
Thank you, Sheets.
So who do you think is more likely to – who at the end of the day, someone said 5 – or I told you, someone has 5 takedowns of the fight, someone has 2. Who has 5?
In this one?
Yeah. Who's more prone to wrestle? Because I think both are live to wrestle for sure, but like I think Dos Santos is the better striker, the faster striker, like that he won't need to take him down. But Altamirano's takedown defense is trash. Like he can if he wants it, but is he even going to go there?
I would actually probably think Altamirano because that would lead me to thinking it's going to go 15 minutes. And I think Dos Santos is kind of comfortable off of his back, so he would almost accept takedowns more so than Altamirano. Either way, it wouldn't shock me 2 to 5, either side.
Yeah, man. And you said it from the top, and I'll reiterate it for sure. This card is very, very tough in DFS for sure. I'll definitely, I think, be taking a little volume off than what I usually play. I'm really happy there's 2 5-rounders, but like I try and always have at least 4 fades on this card, and I want one of them to at least be a favorite in the upper tier. And you can make cases for all of these guys up there being on the optimal. So, yeah, tricky fight, the most likely to go the distance, but you can definitely make a case for both guys and pass to be on the optimal. Dos Santos throws a bunch of volume. Altamirano throws good volume. Both guys, poor takedown defense, can mix in takedowns. Dos Santos coming to Mexico City late at elevation. So if Altamirano survives early, takes over, I'm picking Dos Santos just because I don't think Altamirano's very good, to be honest. The one word I described Altamirano, grit. He'll fight for your money. He's tough. He's gritty. The skills, though, I think he's pretty outclassed in these areas. But minus 290 just because of one fight from an Cop in a losing effort kind of reminds me like I guess Diego Lopez has shown to be the real deal against Movsar Evlov, but similar situation like that is how I see it. What's going on, Rio? Our man's hopping in. Title with the fresh lid. Rio was with me when I did get it. What's going on, G. Kiefer? Very excited for this one as well. 7 p.m. Eastern, little late starts this week. So you're on the East Coast. Yeah, there's no football Sunday. You can stay up till the early morning watching some fights, sweating out some money. Let's keep it going. Next fight on the card. We got, hold on, Denise Bondar, Luis Rodriguez, 8,200 for Bondar, 8,000 for Luis Rodriguez. And this fight, when I wrote it up yesterday, and at some books, minus 120 Rodriguez, plus 100 Bondar. On Bet Online right now, it's minus 110 a pop. This fight's plus 115 to finish. Rodriguez plus 260 inside the distance. Bondar plus 290. Looking at these ownerships, we have Bondar at 16% and Rodriguez at 16%. Okay, that's interesting. Because when I was seeing minus 120 plus 100, I was thinking, all right, the lower or the cheaper fighter by 200 as the small favorites will be 7-10% owned, something higher owned, something like that. But when you look at who's in this range, you're comparing some of the 5-round fights. You're comparing the Manuel Torres fight. A lot of better fights are in this range. So I do think it is lower owned. But it's interesting. You have them both the same, and now it's a coin flip. Maybe that will be the case. How I wrote it up is I prefer the Bondar side just because I thought he was going to be lower owned. Usually like a minus 120, minus 130 to a plus 110 on the other side. When the minus 130 is the cheaper fighter, I'm almost always going the game theory side. It's pretty much a coin flip. Minus 130 plus 110, minus 110 a piece. I don't value it too different. Give me the ownership discount and the leverage all day in MMA and the most variant sport there is. But if they're both going to be like 16%, I think Rodriguez is the more dangerous fighter, has more ceiling. But I definitely don't love this fight, relatively speaking, comparing it to the 5-rounders, comparing it to the Torres Duncan fights, etc. So what's your thoughts on this? I don't love the fight. I was leaning Bondar side. But if I see, no, they're both 16%, I like the Rodriguez side more.
Yeah, see, this is the one I was hoping you could sway me on. And it was also one I was struggling with on ownership. I really didn't know on this one. So I just started them both at 15. And then I went to the rest of the fights and I just started adjusting at the end. So I could definitely move this one either way on both sides. But to me, I think you're right. I think that Rodriguez is the more dangerous striker anyways. I also think he's probably the better wrestler and the better control wrestler. But Bondar might be the more dangerous submission grappler. And I also think he's the guy that could be striking at a higher pace because Rodriguez does waste a little bit too much cage time for my liking. Like he'll sit back and throw punches when he wants to. But in Bondar's last fight, he was active the whole time, which I like to see. And I have not seen that really from Rodriguez. So I just feel like Rodriguez is going to be a little bit better in the striking and the wrestling. But Bondar might just do a little bit more, and maybe we get a split decision either way. And that's kind of leading me to just not wanting this fight. But it's priced right there in the mid-range, and if either one of these guys got 90 plus, it really wouldn't shock me at all. So I'm not sure. I think what my plan is going to be is to just try to avoid it with my hand builds, 10 to 20 hand builds, and then I'll get my exposure through the solver where I'd be fine getting my favorite Bondar lineup and just duplicating it with Rodriguez type of thing. But I have no real lean on this one. I think you're right. Just give me the lower owned side of the two if we know that going into it.
If you had a full fade this fight or the last fight, which one are you picking?
Right now I have this as a 3-star because of my like unknowns, and I put the last one as a 2-star. So I prefer to fade the last one.
So yeah, we're both on the same page that we don't love these fights, relatively speaking, to the whole card. But I mean, plus 260 inside the distance for AK is definitely solid. Plus 290 inside the distance for 8,200 solid, especially when you'd say they're both in the 16% range, comparing them to who is in it. So yeah, this card is really, really tough. And I have all my breakdowns done on my slate plan. It's not on the website now because I value a lot what Marley says and this discussion that I mix around my tags and stuff like that. And right now I have Bondar overweight. This fight is overweight because 16% is low. And I had the Altamirano Felipe Dos Santos fade as a fade. But I don't know. I might be circling back and messing with that a little bit. So again, everything will be up on the sites pretty shortly after the show. Projections, ownership, slate plan, tier rankings. But it's a very tough card. And these two fights for sure going to be two of the lower owned fights on the card. But I mean, plus 115 to finish, plus 160 to finish. The Dos Santos side at plus 165 inside the distance. These two better than plus 300. Like pretty much everyone's live on this card outside of, I guess Sam Hughes might even be live, but it's a tough card. There's no doubt about that. I don't love these fights in general, relatively speaking. I'll be mixing them in chalkier lineups, leave a little money, and that's how I'll be getting different. Bondar is my preferred play, though, because I do think he will be lower owned, given he is $200 more expensive. What's going on, Ross? I assume, yep. I think he'll be higher owned as well. And the Great in here. A lot of familiar faces, a lot of people hanging out. David's in here as well. What's going on? Let's keep it rolling, Big Marley. Next fight on the card, we have Fares Ziam, Claudio Poyes. Clash of styles right here. Minus 195 is Ziam. Plus 170 is Poyes. We have this fight minus 130 to finish. Fares Ziam plus 165. Claudio Poyes plus 300. Looking at the odds in this one, Fares Ziam, one of the lowest owned in the upper tier at 14%. Claudio Poyes at 17%. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Poyes was a little higher owned due to the lack of dogs down low, solid inside the distance prop. We have a kickboxer against a guy that's going to roll around and try and grab your leg and take your leg off. Marley, I'll throw it to you. Is it going to look like Dan Hooker, who pieces them up forever? Or is Poyes going to find the leg, be able to stay on top and win that way?
So I'm picking Poyes to get a submission in this one. He's not a really good wrestler, and he's going to get picked apart on the feet. So he is submission or bust here. But I think if he gets the submission, it's more likely early than late. And at $7,500, he's got a really good chance of breaking the slate if he gets a first-round submission. So I just prefer to be on his side, whereas Ziam is almost like first-round knockout or bust at $8,700 because you're not going to expect him to go out there and look for takedowns because that's where he puts himself in danger. And he's also not a knockout artist. So, man, it's hard to want to pay $8,700 for him. But at the same time, I don't think that Poyes can go a full 3 rounds with this guy's striking if the takedowns are not there. I just feel like he's going to look for a way out at altitude at some point, and Ziam finds a way to a TKO finish in the second or the third round. What does the second or the third round do enough though at $8,700? I don't even know. So I would rather just be underweight. I won't say fade Ziam because I do want a little bit of exposure, like with 150, but I don't see me getting to him with my 10 to 20 hand builds. And then on the Poyes side, I will be overweight to him. Like if I put him at 17, I'll for sure be overweight to 17. But you're right. I could see him being around 20, maybe even a little bit higher than 20. But I'll be overweight to that too. And it's not that I feel good about him winning. It's just that I feel good about his chances of winning are going to be submission. It's probably going to be early. But Ziam's been submitted by lesser grapplers before, so I think Poyes is very live early in the fight.
Yeah, you pretty much said the exact same thing that I was writing my write-up. So initially I was like, Ziam's going to get completely overlooked in this range. 8,700's solid price, plus 165 inside the distance, solid. Like, I'm good with that. But then I'm writing it up. I'm like, it feels like he's first round or bust. So then I go look at the first round prop, and he's plus, it took a little money, plus 450 now. It was plus 550 when I looked, but still plus 450. Like, I mean, I'm scared about the leg kicks, but even if he gets a knockdown on Poyas can fall to his back and just chill there, like Oliveira against Gaethje. Like, what's Ziam going to do? Jump in the guard? Like, it's really tough to finish guys like that. You can, of course, DeLima kick Tafa's leg off like last week. I do think leg kick by TKO, if you're getting real exact, is in play there. But I'm changing Ziam to a fade. Hedham's underweight. I'm going to fade him now in 20 entry and below. Get a little Dos Santos that I was going to get the Ziam route. But like I said, I'm on the Poya side too, especially in DFS. Like, if he wins, you'll take any win as a dog. Like, if you told me right now I can predict the future 7,500 and below, you tell me a dog wins, I very well might even have 100%. Not saying that's the right move, but I could see it kind of like last week. Not many of these cheap dogs win with a lot of big favorites up top. Poya is very live, fits DK scoring very well. If he grabs the ankle, something like that. I think Ziam is first round or bust. If you tell me he gets a second round KO, is that 85, 90? Of course it can be over 100. Like, I wouldn't full fade it if I knew he was going to get a second round finish, but I still think there's plenty of routes. It's not on the optimal. Brandon Moreno's $100 more. The Ortega fight is $200 less. There's still Manuel Torres. Like, there's a lot of other big boy fights with big boy ceilings in this range. Yeah, I'm fading Ziam. I like the Poya side for sure. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets a little steam, 20%, something like that. But I'm still playing them with the lack of dogs we have. So, yeah, no Ziam for me, and we see this fight very similar. I think he probably is first round or bust. That doesn't mean I would go be betting Poyas, because at range, I think that leg kick is going to get Poyas problems early. I think he probably is more likely for an early finish than a late finish. Because if he gets it on the mat, I think he eventually subs him. But I'd be surprised. Like, do you see him getting like 3 takedowns, 1 each round, 10 minutes of control time? Like, do you see him winning like that? Because I struggle to.
No, I mean, especially at elevation, I just don't think he's going to have really any wrestling cardio, the last half of this fight. But if somehow he did win a decision, I mean, it's going to come on the ground. So it would mean he controlled this fight for probably 9+ minutes and does have 3+ takedowns. So, yeah, I mean, I just don't see that happening, but it's in play, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's Poya side for sure for me in DFS. If you have all chalk, 2 5-rounders, Manuel Torres, like, you're eating all the chalk, I think playing Ziam is a fine way there to get different in those bills. But it'll take me over 20 lineups to get to any Ziam. What's going on, Marquis? Hope you're doing well, my man. Let's keep it rolling. Next fight on the card, 13 to talk about. This is the fight with the only weight misses. Edgar Chairez, Daniel Lacerda, De Silva, whatever it may be. Minus 515 is Chairez. Plus 390 on the way back is Lacerda. This fight is minus 600 to finish. Chairez minus 265 inside the distance. Daniel Lacerda plus 400. And again, Chairez missed weight by 5 pounds. Lacerda 1 pound. I don't know. We'll see if this fight stays on. If anybody in here, if anyone sees that it's canceled or has any update, let us know. But man, Marley. So I wrote this fight up. It feels like I wrote up like 10 Lacerda fights that never came to fruition. These guys fought in September. Chris Tognoni, Donkey, come on, man. Clear guillotine in. Lacerda was going to tap eventually. Tognoni steps in, no contest. They were going to run it back a month after in October. De Silva pulls out on weigh-in day. Now the UFC still wants to see this fight for some reason. Hopefully we get it this week. No guarantee now. The line is definitely swelled from when it was last time. It was in the minus 300 range. Now it's minus 515. What we know about this fight, though, is Daniel Lacerda is a madman. At least he's been a madman, but against that first Chairez fight, he did slow the pace down a little bit. He didn't come out guns blazing. He was a little more controlled, but he just got picked apart all day. So his best chance of victory is be the old Lacerda. He knocked Altamirano down, had ZJ Vergara on the ropes in the first round. Another shoot-to-box guy with no cardio. Now it's at elevation, so the cardio is even worse. Chairez by far one of the best plays on the slate. Not telling you anything you don't know, though. 44% we have at Chairez, 14% at Lacerda. I'm definitely playing a lot of Charez. And 14% Lacerda, man, he's still dangerous. He can crack. He's fast. If he does win, it's probably in the first round, and you definitely need him on the slate. So even though I don't like playing plus 390 dogs, when he wins, it's going to be optimal. I'll play some. Definitely like the Charez side, though. One of the best fights to target. How do you see it?
Yeah, definitely a fight that will probably be important on DraftKings. Minus 600 implies that this fight ends early, or just over 85% of the time. So I feel like that's probably where I'm going to max my ownership, is around the 85%, because I do want some with the fade on this fight because of a Charez win and just not getting there. I mean, let's say he got the guillotine in the first fight and he won. He gets 95 points.
You don't want that, yeah.
Yeah, at 9,300, we don't really want that. At 8,700, it would have been cool the last time they were fighting, but at 9,300 now that might not be enough. So I do want to fade this in a few of my lineups, but at the same time, I expect it to end in the first 7 minutes or so. Lacerda is a very good, explosive, fast fighter for 3 or 4 minutes, and that's at sea level. Now we're at elevation, so maybe we're cutting that in half. Maybe he's got a solid 2 minutes in him at this fight. But if he wins, it's going to be in that first 2 minutes, and he's going to break the slate. I also think, man, what I'm worried about is that Charez has bad takedown defense. So if Lacerda's like trying to change up his style, go out there, wrestle this guy, maybe he'll have some success. He'll land 2-3 takedowns in that first round. But then he's going to have nothing left. And then Charez will finish him in the second round and score 80 points and then kill all my lineups. So that's kind of my point, to fade it in some lineups. But Charez, after the first, let's say, 3 minutes of this fight, I expect the skill gap to start closing, and then it'll be a Charez skill gap the longer this fight goes. And I don't see it going to the third round. Charez can knock him out. I believe Lacerda's been knocked out, or TKO'd anyways, 4 times. And then Charez was going to submit him the last time they fought. Lacerda's been submitted once. So either way, I think Charez is going to finish him at some point, probably in that second round. But will he score enough? If he loses that first round, I would say he's not going to score enough. But if he goes out there and he's the better fighter in the first round, he could also get the first round finish, of course, and then he's going to score well. But if he wins the first round, then he finishes in the second round, do you think that is going to be enough?
The thing is, that pretty much was the CJ Vergara fight. I mean, Vergara was running circles for his life, getting dominated in the first round, and then the second round, Vergara outlands him 74-5 on significant strikes with some top control. And CJ put up a pretty big score there. I don't know if it was one. I'd have to go back, but Lacerda showed kind of toughness in that fight. 74 significant strikes. Obviously, you need the ref to let it go on a little bit too and get that. So I'm not saying I don't think he'd be completely dead, but if you tell me right now Charez gets a second round finish at this ownership, I don't want any of this fight. No doubt about that. But if you look at the odds at some books, Bovada minus 125, this fight to finish in the first round. I do think that is the more likely outcome. Now, I do like your point, though. I'll kind of guess broad slate overview. I have 4 fights I love. This fight, Torres Duncan, and the 2 5-rounders. I'm going to make a rule to have at least 2 of those fights in all my builds. Now, that's not that's not like, wow, what a rule that is or anything. I'm just making sure I get at least 2 of them. But at least 2 means I can fade this fight in some. I can fade the Duncan or whatever. I'll probably have at least 3 of them in a lot of lineups. If you're playing 4 of them, I think you should go with Duncan or Lacerda probably at least one of those spots, because then you're just really jamming chalk and have to get different elsewhere. But by far, 4 favorite fights on the card. This fight, Torres Duncan, 2 5-rounders. I'm just making a rule at least 2 of them. And yeah, I'll have some fight fades for all the reasons you said. If it goes like last fight, Lacerda did he didn't come out like he has in the past against Altamirano, against CJ, etc. He slowed the pace down. He tried to, because he knows he doesn't have cardio, trying to fight like the Terrence McKinney against why is that name going past me? Who did McKinney take down in the first round, controlled, and then second round comes out and he just died? Or he got taken down and submitted. Whoever it was on the card that the chick broke her arm.
Yeah. He trains with like the Sarah crew, but
side coach, so something like that. But anyway, you saw McKinney come out and he literally talked about it after. Sakit Romanov, so I don't freaking know. He talked about
said Kaya.
Kaya. There we go. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you.
Thank you.
But he came out and he literally talked about after that fight, like he changed his style because of like how coaches were saying, like be more composed. It was that fight, I believe. No, it was the Bomb Fiend fight. I think he talked about. Anyway, you have seen fighters like that who come out guns blazing most fights, try and be more reserved. It doesn't work for them. They go back to their old one. That is what we saw in the first Chira's fight. If Lacerda comes out that way, I think this fight has a chance to bust for sure. If it gets to the second round, not even close to guaranteed to be on the optimal at 9,300. But I'll be making a rule at least 2 of them, and I definitely will have a good amount of this fight. I love the Chara side, though, a lot more than Lacerda. Like 44%, I still think I want to be overweight on Chara's because, I mean, Lacerda is just free right now. He just gives free points, 300 pluses. I think Chara's does get a first-round finish here. So great fight to target. No doubt about that. If it does stay on the card, monitor that. With Chira's missing by 5 pounds, Lacerda 1 pound, and people will act like the weight miss doesn't do anything for me. I'm trying to read it, like Marley and I talk about a good amount. Trying to read into weight misses and stuff is pretty tough. And 5 pounds is like, did he even try? Like, is he saving his energy? Like the later the fight goes, is he gonna have more stamina because he didn't cut those 5 pounds? I don't know. So yeah, give me the Chara side. Great fight to target though. Let's keep it going. Next fight on the card. Mateus Mendonca taking on Jesus Aguilar. Mendonca 8,400. Aguilar 7,800. This fight is minus 132 on the Mendonca side. Aguilar plus 112. Minus 180 for this fight to finish. Both guys plus 175 inside the distance. I really like this fight. And this is another reason I think that Bonda-Rodriguez fight, I might go underweight on it the more I talk about it because I like this fight a lot more than that fight as well. My preferred side is the Aguilar side. I love the $600 savings. A lot of it is game theory. Build a lineup. Plug in Mendonca. Take Mendonca out. Plug in Aguilar. You can cut plenty of dupes. I don't think you're really giving up much. I'm actually on the Aguilar side. He's very short, no reach, so he's definitely going to be giving up stuff there. But, man, he throws overhands. Clip no chin Shannon Ross. He clipped him. But he can wrestle. Solid grappling. I think he can get top control in this one as well. Mendonca, I don't know, man. Definitely wasn't impressed against Nate Maness. Absolutely got dominated in that one. Trying to go for the heel hook. Give me the Aguilar side on this one. I do think Mendonca's fine. But, again, build teams, plug in Mendonca, take him out, plug in Aguilar. I'll be doing a lot of that with my stuff. What about you?
Yeah, I'm on the same side. I like Aguilar in this one. And I definitely like him more than the Bondar-Rodriguez fight. I'll have more of him than both of them for sure. But I don't know about the Mendonca side. I might have more of that mid-range fight over him because I'm picking Aguilar to win, where I'm just not sure on the other one. But what I do think that Mendonca is the better striker here for sure. I also think he's the better wrestler, as in like, he could go out there and land 2 out of 3 takedowns in this fight. 66, 67% takedown accuracy. But I think Aguilar is more the type that'll land 5 out of 18 type of takedowns. And I would rather have that guy because he's just going to be hard to deal with. He's not going to go out there and accept a striking match with Mendonca. So I think he's going to be looking to chain wrestle. And if he fails his first 5, he's still going to be going for his 6th, 7th, and 8th. And if he wins, most of that work is going to come on the ground. I think he's live for the submission in any round, actually. He, when he fought Edgar Chairez on this card, he was taking him down over and over and over early in the fight, just not giving him any second to breathe. And then he ended up getting a guillotine in the 5th round of that fight. So even at altitude, I think Aguilar's live for a 3rd round sub or even 3 rounds of wrestling and win this fight. So he's going to be my preferred play, my leverage play. I will be underweight to Mendonca, but I think he's live for the knockout. It's just he probably needs it, especially if he's spending time on his back. So underweight to him. Give me the underdog to win this one.
I love it. 2 for 2 on that one. Definitely will have a lot of Aguilar in this one at 7,800 and easy stuff. Like I said, I'll repeat it one more time. MMA though, a duplication sport, a unique sport. You have to, if you leave $0 on the table, I would try and get in a low-owned fighter. If you're just jamming all the chalk in it, you can win and split with everyone. But if you have $0 on the table, I would try and get in a low-owned fighter. If you're just jamming all the chalk in it, you can win and split with everyone. But if you have $0 on the table, I would try and get in a low-owned fighter. If you're just jamming all the chalk in it, you can win and split with everyone. But if you have $0 on the table, I would try and get in a low-owned fighter. If you're just jamming all the chalk in it, you can win and split with everyone. But if you have $0 on the table, I would try and get in a low-owned fighter. If you're just jamming all the chalk in it, you can win and split with everyone. But if you have $0 on the table, I would try and get in a low-owned fighter. If you're just jamming all the chalk in it, you can win and split with everyone. But if you have $0 on the table, I would try and get in a low-owned fighter. If you're just jamming all the chal which, hey, if you told me the winner will be this lineup and it'll split a million ways, you still play it. But you don't know what's going to happen. So when you win, how much do you win is how I try and play the MMA game and how I recommend it. So love the 7,800 Aguiar, leave 600 on the table from Ndongo, or even 400 on the table, whatever it may be, is how I'll be playing this fight. Like the Aguiar side, glad you're on that side as well. Let's keep it rolling. Next fight on the card, Hani Barcelos taking on Christian Quinones. Barcelos minus 160. It depends where you look. Always price shot. FanDuel, Barcelos minus 192. Bet online minus 163. Christian Quinones has taken some money this morning, plus 143 on the way back for him. Looking at the odds, or looking at the inside the distance prop, minus 200. We have Barcelos plus 115. Quinones plus 240. This fight is 8,600, 7,600. Barcelos 15%, and we have Quinones at 19%. Well, if that's the case, I'm definitely going to be playing Quinones. Like, has as much upside as anybody in the lower tier. Plus 240 inside the distance is solid. He can crack. He has power. Fits on the feet. I think it's going to be competitive. He was my pick. I guess I do like seeing the line go his way because it makes me feel better about my pick. I don't like it going that way because I think ownership probably goes up the more it does go down. And if that's the case, man, maybe Rione's the play right here at 8,600 plus 115 inside the distance. I think he has wrestling upside in this one. If he doesn't like how it's going on the feet, I mean, he can wrestle. I think that's the easiest path to victory on this one. Minus 200 to finish. I like this fight. I do know that. And I want to be overweight on it. I pick Quinones. Still my pick, but man, if he's going to be more popular, which I do think he will be, and if the line keeps going his way, this might be the leverage spot. If you're eating the 5-round chalk, Torres chalk, whatever, plugging in Barcelos can get you a little difference. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I don't really know on this one. I think that Barcelos is the better fighter all around. If this is a 15-minute striking match, it's probably pretty close, but I would side with Barcelos there. But like you mentioned, Quinones has good hands and he's got power too. Barcelos been knocked out at least once, maybe twice, I think, in the last couple of his losses. So Quinones is live for a 100-point knockout win in this one. But if he's going to win a decision, I wouldn't expect him to score much more than 10x. And I don't think he's taken Barcelos down, not even once, would be my guess. But on the Barcelos side, it's that, is he going to spend a lot of time striking in this match? If he is, then I don't really like him. But his biggest advantage, and the reason I'm picking him to win a unanimous decision, is because I think he could go out there and wrestle in every round. And if that's the case, then he has, not only could he finish the fight on the ground, but even in a decision, he could score over 10x. So I would say this is going to be one where I'm not going to make it a point to get them into my hand builds. But if I'm overweight to both sides in my 150, I'd be totally okay with that. And I don't think they're going to get a whole lot of ownership, so it won't take much to get overweight. But with my prediction, I feel like Barcelos goes out there, wins 2, maybe 3 rounds by mixing in a little bit of wrestling, and he probably scores around 80 points. 80 points, I'd rather just pass on. So I'm not sure on this one. I put it as a 3-star. I might move it to 4. I might move it to 2. I'm not sure. I haven't even written this one up yet. So it'll be up on SHIPITNation.com within the next couple hours. And I don't know. You might be able to sell me with your write-up. I'll be going to checking yours out. And if you're overweight, it might be able to push me a little bit overweight too.
I'm going to be overweight because Barcelos right in between. So you got you're at 8,500. You have Moreno at 8,800. I know I don't want ZM right there. Like 8,600 for plus 115 inside the distance with wrestling upside at 15%, even though I didn't even pick him to win. Like, there's no way I'm going to say no to that. When I know a lot of my lineups will be eating chalk, I'm playing at least 2 of those 4 fights I like. Like, that ownership, if Zion's 14%, Barcelos 15%, which one do you think has more upside, Marley? Like, I mean, for me, it's easy Barcelos. He has the wrestling upside. He has better inside the distance prop by like 50 cents.
Yeah, I would say more
cheaper.
So, I don't know. It's kind of different because I feel like more likely upside is Barcelos, but Quinones' upside puts him on the optimal lineup. Whereas Barcelos, I don't know, he's still got to compete with these other guys who can score well up top. And I think if Quinones wins the fight, it's probably a first-round knockout.
I love Cano. Yeah, I'll definitely be playing Canonas, even though if he's the donkey side, he's going to be 21% or whatever. It kind of comes down to like the playlist stuff. Like, I just don't like many dogs on this card. I'll probably be eating chalk dogs on this card and having them sprinkle Ione, fading one of the 5 rounders, fading or going Duncan. I mean, Sheets talked about a lot. I'll definitely be having Duncan over Torres in a lot of lineups at that ownership discount. Not that I don't like Torres either, but you have to think of the ownership route. I'm definitely going to be playing Barcelos at 8,600 to get different. My preferred play is Quinones. He might be like 24%. I wouldn't be surprised if he got some steam, especially with this line going his way on a card that's tough for dogs, though. So I'll be overweight on this fight. Now, last question on this one. Barcelos gets a finish. TKO or submission?
I would say submission. His biggest edge in this fight's his submission grappling, in my opinion, but he doesn't use it as much as I would like him to. If I was his coach, it would be submission for sure. But I don't know. I would say it's kind of a toss-up with the way he fights.
Bet Online has both at plus 325. So pick whatever method you want. And then it has plus 250 for decision. So he can win any 3 ways. The books have it pretty close. A lot of other books have the KO prop a little better than the submission prop. But yeah, I mean, I found that pretty interesting because if he wrestles, I think a submission more likely than a TKO, ground and pound, something like that. So that was my lean as well. Quinones definitely has the power there, but I'll be overweight on this fight. Barcelos low own. I prefer him over Ziam. I'll use him in lineups to get difference. I'm picking Quinones to win by knockout, though. I think he chins Barcelos, who's getting a little up there in age. Keep it rolling. Next fight, the big fight on the card. Sheets giving away a monthly membership. Again, if you do want that membership, say why. I know someone in chat already talked about it. Big Marley will be picking a winner at the end. Very big fight in this one. And Sheets' favorite play on the slate, Chris Duncan. Manuel Torres, Chris Duncan, minus 186 for Torres, plus 161 for Duncan. The pricing, 8,300 is Torres, 7,900 is Duncan. The odds in this fight, minus 650 for it to finish. Torres minus 150, Duncan plus 200. It's a game theory play. This is why Sheets talked about it. We have ownership right now on this one at Torres at 41% and Chris Duncan at 27%. 8,300, 7,900, 400 ownership gap. Torres is definitely underpriced in terms of money line value and inside the distance value. Like minus 150, that's the same as Naimov. That's better than Brandon Moreno. That's better than Ortega, Yair, all of that. So he's going to be played very heavily at 8,300. And MMA, how do you get different? Play the other side in a good fight, the lower own side. I probably will have more Chris Duncan than Torres. Now, when I'm breaking down this fight and watching tape, I pick Torres because I think he's going to push a pace. The dude throws bombs. I think he lands on the chin. What I think happens, though, is not really how I play DFS. I play when I win, how much do I win? And I do think Duncan is the sharp side in DFS with game theory, with leverage. You can also build a team, plug in Torres, take Torres out, play Duncan, leave 400. Right there, you just cut out ownership and left money on the table. That is stuff I look to do. You can break it down how you want, Big Marley. It's a great fight to target. Again, I will have at least 2 of this fight, the Chares fight, and the main events. So I'll have some of this fades, but I love this fight. It's the most likely to finish on the card. Duncan is my preferred DFS play. I'm picking Torres, though, but hey, that's what happens.
Yeah, I would actually say if I had to go 100% on any fight, this is it. I don't think I will be 100% on any fight, but I probably want 90+% of this fight. I mean, it's expected to end inside the distance 87% of the time. And both sides have just big-time slate breaking upside. Torres at only 8,300. That's a good price for a guy who is plus 150 to knock out his opponent in the first round. And I don't even, what's his ITD line in the first? It's got to be
minus 150.
Minus 150. So now we got a 60% chance of finishing the fight in the first round. So damn, that's where I like to be. I want to be like 60%. I just want to match his first round line, I think, because if he gets the first round knockout or even a first round submission at $8,300, I think he's got a really good chance at the optimal lineup. So let's say I go 60%. Torres, because that's what I'm picking to happen. First round knockout. And really, it's a lot of recency bias too. That elbow in his last fight was one of the nastiest knockouts I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I loved it. So I was like, that bumped him up a little bit for me. So, but if he does not get that first round knockout, not only is Duncan live to get a first round knockout himself, but the longer this goes, the more I would expect it to play into Duncan's favor. And he's the wrestler in this one. If we're getting a gassed Torres in the second and the third round, Duncan can probably do whatever he wants with them on the ground, and he could score 120 plus points. So that's why I kind of want to be 100% on this fight. Give me 60 Torres, 40% Duncan, and get overweight to both sides. But I could also see just Torres. Well, I don't know. What's the case for this not being on the optimal lineup, actually? Because the more I talk about it, the more I want 100%.
Duncan always fought the past couple fights using wrestling, clinch control, cage control, try and press it up against and not stay at range. And
I guess he did
knocks him out in
only
the second or something.
6 in his last fight.
Yeah,
I would have thought it was more than that.
And dude broke his arm early in that fight too. And then against Morales, he's coming off the Contender Series as this guy, punching power, all this. Takes him down 5 times and puts on the wrestling shoes. So I do see a path. I actually like that Charez-Lacerda fight a little more than this fight. Not necessarily the prices, I guess, which takes me back a little bit, which is why I'm not going all in on any of these fights on the 13-fight card. But that's how I see the path, is Duncan trying to play it greasy, clinch control, slow the pace down a little bit in that way.
Yeah, and there are lots of live underdogs on this card. So, yeah, I could get down with that. But still, I'm closer to, give me 90% of this fight. This is my favorite of all the fights because of where they're priced, and I think that we're going to get 100 points from the winner in this one. So I'm loading up my pick, though, Torres first round knockout.
I like it. We got 5 fights left. I know you got to get your kid in 15 minutes. We've talked a lot about these fights. We're going to keep it rolling, rapid fire through these last 5. And again, all the content will be up at SHIPITNation.com. We appreciate you, Whaler, hanging out with us. Next fight on the card, Yasmin Uruguay taking on Sam Hughes. Biggest favorite on the card is Yasmin at -600 and the highest price at 9,500. Taking in Sam Hughes plus 425 and 6,700. This fight is plus 135 to finish, with all of the finish equity on the Yasmin side at plus 125 compared to Sam Hughes at plus 1,600. I will say this fight, or Yasmin was plus 150 earlier in the week inside the distance, has taken a little money to finish. We have her at 14% or 12%, excuse me, and Sam Hughes at 7%. I'll throw it to you with the question of, I think Yasmin's going to win. I think she's going to keep it on the feet. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. So does she need a first round knockout in this one? And do you think it's worth playing the biggest favorite, the highest priced at 12% ownership? Because she definitely has 110 plus upside. But I guess the other question I'll say, is there enough value and dogs on this card to make that work? So I'm not playing Sam Hughes. I'm really curious to take your take on Yasmin. I'm keeping her in the pool, and I'm playing her in chalkier lineups to try and get different. But, man, it's definitely tough leaving some money in Yasmin teams, which is stuff I like to do. So what do you see on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to fade Hughes.
All right, Devin. Hold on. Devin, I put this up here. So if she does on the optimal, I'm going to get a video of this one.
Yeah, I'm going to be fading Hughes, and I will be overweight on, I like to call her Waregi. I'm just really high on Waregi.
That's probably right. I Yasmin.
I think it's Uregi or something like that. But
yeah, Uregi.
Waregi.
Yasmin.
and no, I don't think she needs a first round knockout, because in her second UFC fight, she scored 129 DraftKings points with the second round knockout. And I think that's in play here. I mean, this is a worse striker in this matchup. Okay, so Sam Hughes, her entrance into the UFC was fighting Tisha Torres. Tisha Torres has like 25 fights, something like that. And she's knocked out, got a TKO one time. And that's Sam Hughes right here. Waregi is so much more dangerous, so much of a better striker than Tisha Torres. I just love this girl's striking. I've even said that she's potential title contender. She's coming off a bad knockout, so I was really hoping to get a decent line on her coming in here, but now she's still -600, so apparently other people really like her as well. I don't think the field will be on her at $9,500. She is going to need a knockout at some point, or at least multiple knockdowns in order to pay that off, because she's not going to go out there and look to wrestle. She can strike at a high pace, but not high enough to pay off a $9,500 price tag in a decision with no knockdowns. But I'm predicting that she gets a TKO in this fight. I think I picked third round, which does make me not really like her as much. But I think she's live to get a first round knockout, live to get a second round knockout, and more live than the field thinks she is to get the knockout. So I will be overweight to Waregi. I will even get her in my hand builds. I'll make it a point to get her in a couple hand builds, to be honest with you. But give me Waregi to just pick Hughes apart, and probably to a point where the ref has seen enough and he steps in.
Yeah, I really hope so, because I want to see Devin Davis eat a shoe. That'd be pretty interesting. I said underweight for Yasmin, but I was going to keep her in my pool and cap her at 15%, but 15% would be overweight. So I'll probably be somewhere around the field, use her in chalkier lineups with the 2 5-rounders, with the Torres of the world and more the mid-tier while I have the value. And I'll use her to get different and maybe one other spot, leave some money on the table. But like, I like Charas a lot more, like the 5-rounders a lot more. I like leaving money on the table. All of that's really hard to do at 9,500, especially with a lot of big dogs. But that is why she's coming in at 12%. Not every day do you get a minus 600 favorites, biggest favorite on the card at 12%. So definitely we'll be playing a little bit there. Keep it rolling. Next fight on the card, Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Ricky Tercios. Minus 220 is Rosas Jr. Plus 185 is Ricky Tercios. This fight is minus 115 to finish. Rosas plus 135 inside the distance. Tercios plus 500. I'm on the Rosas Jr. side. I think the UFC knows what they're doing. Tercios poor takedown defense. Rosas Jr. one-dimensional grappler. He's working on the striking, but yeah, I mean, he knocked out Mitchell. Congrats. Big Marley's knocking out Mitchell right there. So I think Rosas gets the takedown, gets to the back, controls it most of the fight. Does he get the submission is the question, or a finish in this one, which I think we probably, I don't know for sure if we need. Definitely want at 9,000. You can see multiple takedowns, a lot of control time, but I'm definitely going to be playing some Rosas Jr. And I'll be honest, like, I'll be playing some lineups that have 500 on the table where I could get up to Yasmin from Raul, but you're skipping a couple things. You're leaving money on the table, and I think he has just as much upside with this style. So, yeah, I'm on Rosas Jr. I think the UFC knows what they're doing. Tercios, man, he's been in some – the He-Stand fight was fun. Still got taken down 7 times. It's a hobby fight, one of the worst fights you'll ever see. Haven't seen him fight in a little bit. I put him as underweight, but I guess I'm going to throw this to you as well. Him or Victor Altamirano?
Tercios for me.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Really, because, all right, so I agree with everything you said, and I am on the Rosas side. I think we don't even need the finish. He could go out there and land takedowns in each round, get 10 takedowns even in this fight, and score well in the decision. I also think he's live for an early submission. And it's all because Tercios just doesn't have good takedown defense, and it's probably going to be a fairly high-paced fight. But in those fights where Tercios was taken down like 4 and 7 times, maybe even more than that, he won those fights. And he scored 120 and 114 DraftKings points in those fights. And Rosas is 19 years old.
That was the reason I picked him over. I was like, at the end of the day, the dude's still 19 years old, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong at 19 years old against a grown man at 30. So that was literally, I don't know, galaxy brain, whatever it may be, but I know what I was at 19 years old. Shit, like, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, no shit. But yeah, I mean, I think if Tercios wins this fight, he's going to score over 10x, and he's got 100-point potential in this fight. And it could just be the fact that Rosas is 19 years old. He's just not ready for the UFC quite yet. He's beat nobodies, and Tercios could beat nobodies as well. So yeah, I just like this fight a good amount. It's going to be in more lineups than it won't be. But I'm thinking I'll kind of start my lineups with Rosas, start building from there, hand builds that is. And then if I need to find some salary to move up elsewhere, I'll move down to Tercios and then start building again. But I'm fine with either one of these sides in my single entry, but my preferred play is Rosas Jr., and I'm picking him to win probably 30-27. I mean, I think that the hype is fairly real. I think that the UFC knows what they're doing. They want this guy to get the wins. And this is a good matchup for him to do it. But I'm just worried. I mean, there's a lot of questions. I think that there's a good chance this is on the optimal lineup either way. So I'll get a good amount to both guys.
I like it. Before we get to the next fight, we have 3 fights left. I only saw 2 people, Tyler and Brent, want the membership. So Big Marley, give me a sec. I'm going to pick. All right, there you go.
I was going to go with Brent because I like that they're golf as well, and no better place to be for golf than SHIPIT Nation.
Hey, there we go. Brent, yeah, we have a very, very, I would argue, the best golf product in the industry. Definitely not the most expensive by far. Showdowns, the Gen. Hoop. We saw Hoop and Tambo did last week. Tambo 60K, third in the Millie Maker, third or fourth. Hoop 220K, whatever it may be. Another day ending in Y for Hoop. D-Gen coming over, one of the best golf minds in the industry, projections, ownership. Brent Golf, you won the membership. Shout out to our man Sheets. Take a picture of your YouTube, ship it, and then email info@shipitnation.com. And we got, brother, you want a membership? We have a lot of options, weekly, monthly, 6-month, and annual. Make sure to use that code DGEN15 for 15% off your membership. And again, it's not just MMA, NBA. Shout out to a lot of people yesterday. NHL going on as well. MLB will be here before you know it. Of course, PGA. 3 fights left, Big Marley. Daniel Zellhuber, Francisco Prado. This one should be a little bit of fun. -270 is Zellhuber. +230 is Prado. -135 for this fight to finish. Zellhuber +150 inside the distance. Prado +325. Looking at the odds in this one, Zellhuber 14% and Prado 15%. I agree with it, and I had put overweight on both of these guys. Zellhuber kind of like Ione Barcelos. I think the upside's there. Long, lengthy guy, +150 inside the distance is good. I think he has more upside than Ziam, and he's going to be low owned. So I'll use him and chalk your lineups with the Yair Ortega fight, the main events, the Torres of the world, etc. So I'm playing Barcelos and Zellhuber to get different in the upper tier. I like Prado more, though, in a vacuum because I just don't like the lower tier options. Prado hits like a truck. Zellhuber is still very young. He's hittable. I think Prado can connect on the chin. I hope one of Puelles, Quinones, Prado are on the optimal because I'll have a good bit of them. But how do you see this fight going, and how do you rank Zellhuber, Ione, and Farziam?
I would go Zellhuber's more on the Ziam level. He's kind of a fade for me. So Barcelos first of the 3. And then I don't even care on the next 2. They're kind of just both. I won't get to any Zellhuber and I won't get to any Ziam with my 10 to 20 hand builds. I know that much, but at the same time, I'm fine keeping them in my 150 pool. I would say that Zellhuber is the better all-around striker, and he can really strike at a high pace when he wants to. But I would only expect him to want to strike in this match. If anyone's looking for takedowns, in my opinion, it would be Prado. Prado's also super young. I expect him to improve each time out. He lands some bombs, so I think Prado's in play for the early knockout. And I just think that if Prado gets the early knockout, he's on the optimal lineup. If Zellhuber gets an early knockout, he's still got to compete with other people. And if Prado wins a decision, I think he competes. It's about 10x is where I would see Prado. If he wins a decision, maybe a little bit more than 10x. But if Zellhuber wins a decision, definitely give me the under on 10x here. And I mean, this is a guy who lost a striking match to a grappler. Like, I just don't trust him that much, especially at this line. So I'm picking Zellhuber to win because I do think he is the better minute winner over the course of 15 minutes, staying on the feet. But my preferred DraftKings play is definitely going to be Prado at 7,300. I don't think he'll get a lot of ownership, but I think he has 100-plus point potential by cracking Zellhuber early. Christos Giagos cracked Zellhuber early in the last fight. Could have finished him. Maybe Prado does. So I'll be overweight to Prado, I think, and I will be fading Zellhuber in my hand builds, but I'll probably still be underweight with my 150.
Yeah, we see it the same. I'm picking Zellhuber. I like the Prado side more for the upside and the price. And I'm really just playing Zellhuber for the ownership when I'm jamming in a lot of the chalk. In a vacuum, he probably is a fade for me, but Ziam is going to be the fade. I have him ranked the last of those 3. Definitely big news. Appreciate that, Siggy. That fight, Lacerda Chira staying on. Massive, massive news. And Devin, 57 watching, only 7 likes. That is hurtful, no doubt about that. We do appreciate everyone hanging out. Takes 2 seconds out of your day, though. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. Helps us out a ton. Bringing you shows daily, every week for MMA as well, though. Subscribe, SHIPITnation.com. And again, get over to the site, weeklies, monthly, 6-month, and annual packages. 2 fights left. Marley doesn't have much time, so let's keep it rolling. Yair Rodriguez, Brian Ortega, co-main event, 5-round fight. 8,500 is Yair, 7,700 is Ortega. Yair sitting at minus 143, plus 123 on the way back is Ortega. This fight's minus 200 to finish. Yair and Ortega both plus 170 inside the distance. A couple quick notes. Ortega opened minus 150. Immediately, Yair got by to got a lot of buy to minus like 220 range. And then Ortega got some money on the way back, has taken some money the past couple days. This fight and the main event we're going to talk about is a rematch. These guys did fight. Both fights did end in a shoulder injury. So now we get the second time. That fight, Ortega, I mean, it was a close fight. Yair definitely was picking him apart at range. 1 for 5 on takedowns was Ortega. Had some top control. Then first round, the shoulder goes out. Some people said because Yair had the armbar in. Maybe. Some people say fluke. Big Marley, how do you see this fight going? Are you going to be making any rules in these fights?
No, not going to make any rules, but I do want this in the majority of my lineups because it's 5 rounds. If this was a 3-round fight, which I thought it was when I first started researching the card, I was like, oh, this is one we can get away from. Co-main event, big names, probably gets a lot of ownership, and I'd be fine getting away from it with 3 rounds. But with 5 rounds, I would expect the winner, even in a decision, to score 10x or probably a little bit more. It's just, is that going to cut it? I'm not sure about. But they also both have finishing upside. They're very well-rounded, both of them, but Rodriguez is the more dangerous striker and Ortega is the more dangerous grappler. So I really don't have a preferred play in this one. I'm picking Yair to win. It's also in Mexico, which I think helps him a lot if it's on the card, if it's up to the judges. But I'm probably just going to start my hand builds with Yair and then start building the rest of my lineup. If I need the extra 800, I'll switch to Ortega, even in a single entry. So I'm absolutely okay with either guy here. I don't really know how this one's going to play out. I think it will be close, but I give the ultimate striking edge to Yair because Ortega is not a really good wrestler. So I think most of this fight plays out on the feet. That's where I favor Yair. It's in Mexico. I favor Yair a little bit more for that reason. So ultimately, I'm picking him to win a decision. And if I had to put a projection, he's going to score this many points in a decision. I would say like 89. Like that, maybe that doesn't cut it, but I don't know.
Not.
And he does have much higher ceiling as well. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this one. I'll probably be around 40% on both. And I'm also fine just making my favorite Yair lineup an Ortega lineup and leaving $800 to be a little contrarian that way. Going to be heavy on both sides, but give me Yair to win.
Yeah, I don't think you could have said any better. I know you don't got much time. You got 1 fight left, but my pick was Yair. I do not – if I had to pick any fight to go all in on, it would be this fight slightly, a lot of it because the pricing. But I'm totally fine. Build teams with Yair, drop Yair to Ortega, leave $800. I think that's definitely a way you can get different. But my pick is Yair, stay in that range, piecing him up right there. Last fight, Big Marley, Brandon Moreno, Brandon Royval, too. Again, this one also ended in a shoulder injury. These guys fought a couple years ago. Moreno minus 280, Royval plus 240. This fight's minus 160 to finish. Moreno plus 125 inside the distance. Brandon Royval plus 300. My take is Brandon Moreno, due to wrestling, just like we saw Pantoja. I mean, Royval's game for sure, no doubt about that. Short notice. He's training at elevation, so I'm not too worried. But that man can't stuff a takedown. Moreno can wrestle. I think Moreno gets the job done. How do you see it?
Yeah, I like this fight more than the last one, and I would say this is my second favorite overall fight to target on DraftKings. I'll get a ton of this fight. Not making a rule to go all in or anything, but I will be heavy on this fight. I will have one of them in my core plays over at SHIPITNation.com. I'm picking Brandon to win. You got to go over there, find out which Brandon that is, but they are over there on the core plays. Looking forward to crushing this card with you and everybody listening. Thank you guys. Good luck, but go sign up, man. We got all the sports, best price around. We're crushing everything. No better place to be. Best community as well. So nothing to not like about Shipping Nation.
Oh, yeah. We're growing. The merger with DGen's awesome. A lot of new faces in the Discord. No better price out there. No better content. DGen 15. gets you 15% off. All of the content will be up. And again, shout out Big Marley, best ownership MMA projections in the industry. Head over SHIPITNation.com, weekly, monthly, 6-month, annual packages. Appreciate everyone hanging out, watching live, watching on playback. We really do mean it. You guys are what drives us. You guys make the show a lot of fun. Hit that like, hit that subscribe on the way out. Hey, let's win something. Let's shift something big this weekend. For Big Marley, I'm Titletown. Have a good weekend. Be safe. Good luck.